as I mentioned just before, Bill, we had a great group of leaders that came together, visionary leaders that came together to create and found MDIC. And another part of that collaborative partnership was Director Shuren. His support and vision for the partnership and getting this off the ground was absolutely critical. And so looking forward to hearing Director Shuren from CDRH speak on the FDA perspective on public-private partnerships and MDIC in particular. Jeff?
Oh, good morning. I am thrilled to be here because while I was asked to give the FDA perspective, I really view myself as a cheerleader. I mean, MDIC is great. It is a high priority for us, and I want to tell you why. What's the value proposition for CDRH? And as Bill Hawkins mentioned, this is all about regulatory science. So what are we talking about? It's the tools, the methods, the approaches, the standards for assessing the safety, effectiveness, quality, and performance of medical devices. It essentially isn't the science behind making technologies. It's the science behind understanding what technologies do. Absolutely essential to translate that development into something that then can be out there on the market, and the information to inform practitioners and patients on how to use it safely. Absolutely critical. Without it, we don't get good technologies to market. So what's the value proposition for us? Well, everything begins with our vision, which is that patients in the U.S. have access to high-quality, safe and effective medical devices of public health importance first in the world. And that is not about a competition. It's not about our beating other countries. It's a recognition that if we have good technology, and emphasis on we know it's good technology, that we get it to patients as quickly as possible. It's no value to them if they don't have access to it. And first in the world is simply a good metric by which to judge if we are successful. So a question before is, how do we judge our success? Well, our vision statement actually builds into it the measurement, or at least one measure for our success. But we face a critical public health challenge. We have a fabulous regulatory standard to come to market for protecting patients. It's reasonable assurance of safety and effectiveness. And we have high confidence a product coming on the market is good for patients. And we generate good evidence and information so practitioners and patients can make well-informed decisions. But the challenge is that our standard is one of the highest bars in the world. And as a result, it can create disincentives for innovators to bring their technologies to the U.S. first, if at all. So the solution for us is, can we sufficiently reduce the time and cost of bringing products to market such that innovators will view the U.S. market favorably and want to come here early without compromising our standard of reasonable assurance of safety and effectiveness? And if we get there, that's the sweet spot. Then we have arrived at the right place. So many of our strategic priorities are all centered around reducing time and cost but not compromising that standard. And regulatory science is a critical key, because the solution can never be that we shortchange or cut corners on the science. The science, if you will, is what sets you free. Good science is what should and does get you to market. But if we have tools that are safer, faster, and more cost-effective, then we can reduce the time and cost of coming to market and still have that strong evidence to show reasonable assurance of safety and effectiveness. And that's what this is all about, and that's why it's so important for us. Now, we have a rich history at CDRH of investing in regulatory science. So we have over a dozen labs, over 100 people in those labs and other people in the center who devote time and energy to advancing regulatory science, developing these kinds of tools. And often it's with partners, members of academia and industry. So let me give you a few practical examples of what this may look like. We had developed methodology for being able to use EKG patterns to predict the personalized response to some devices for cardiac resynchronization therapy, and as a result, improve the efficacy of those devices because you can better identify who's going to benefit from them in the first place. The development of extrapolation models that allow us to leverage data from adult populations so that we need less pediatric data to support pediatric indications for new technologies. If you have an orthopedic implant, one issue is how long is it going to last? It takes on a lot of wear and tear, and a lot of our old methodologies underestimated the impact of daily life on the use of those implants. So we worked on new methodology with motion capture, with functional and fine element modeling that now allowed us to better assess what is the impact of activities of daily living on the loading of orthopedic implants. New assessment tools for electrodes that go in the brain so we can better understand what's the functional lifespan of an electrode and use that to develop new electrophysiological outcome measures, leveraging evoked potentials and EEGs for assessing the impact on traumatic brain injury. And we helped with partners create a model called the virtual family. So it is a computer modeling of the anatomy of a boy, a girl, a man, and a woman that then can be used for test driving technologies. And in fact, between 2007 and 2014, we had 120 submissions, pre-market submissions, that cited the virtual family. It came from 42 different companies and for 95 unique devices. That can be a huge impact. Here's our challenge, though. Our country does not invest a lot of money in regulatory science. The NIH has over $30 billion. Most of that is for basic science, applied science, translational science, very little for regulatory science. And we're not going to expect in our economic climate that we're going to see Congress giving more money necessarily to regulatory science anytime soon. In addition, much of the data that's generated that we can then leverage to make these new tools are held by companies that are often proprietary, they're kept in data silos. And if we want to do a study and engage in research, oftentimes they're one-offs. We engage in new contracts. We have to build the infrastructure from scratch, and that's a lot of inefficiency. So what we realized several years ago is the best and most feasible solution are public-private partnerships, so that we can bring together the government side and together with the private side and getting competitors together to be able to share data, expertise, and funding. And that is the way, as a force multiplier, we can get the bang for the buck and advance regulatory science, and hence why we were such a strong proponent for and a co-founder of MDIC. And MDIC, just within its short lifespan, has already paid off to us important dividends. And today you're going to hear about them, but let me just highlight two to give you a flavor. So one was the development of a patient-centered benefit risk framework, sort of recommendations back to sponsors for considerations of patient perspectives on benefit risk throughout most of the product lifecycle, and included in there in the appendix is a compendium of possible tools that may be used for assessing patient preferences. This is science, the science of patient inputs. Can we generate sufficiently robust data to understand the trade-offs patients are willing to make on benefits and risks, such that we can rely on it to make regulatory decisions? That's a game changer. And already CDRH is using that information to inform our decision making. And at the time that framework came out, we put out a complementary guidance to give our recommendations to sponsors if they want to generate and then use that data to support market approval decisions. A second area is now in computer modeling, where modeling, in certain cases, can reduce the time and cost for answering critical questions. And a very excited area that you're going to hear about is modeling that can be used to reduce the size of clinical trials in appropriate cases. And that is truly transformative. And I always say, you put your money where your mouth is. I didn't say that originally. I think somebody else came up with it. But you invest in the things that are important. And so to give you a flavor of why we think MDIC is important is where we put our money on. So as you saw, I am a member of the board. I have staff from 5 of the offices in CDRH involved in every single steering committee on every single project. And we have also provided the funding to support the patient-centered benefit risk framework that came out and the funding to support Case for Quality that is now getting off the ground. So we put our money, our very limited dollars, where it's important. And the extent of our commitment, I hope, shows to you, our investments, shows you the extent of our commitment. So again, we're very excited about MDIC, not just what it's done, but the opportunities of where we can go. Thank you.